How will the West rid themselves of their failed project, the Zelensky Pest? It must strongly be suspected that they will continue to love bomb him, while at the very same time they nudge him to the sidelines. And this is by Jonas Alex, senior editor of Veterans Today. It must surely be clear to every single political leader across the Western world by now that Russia is more than capable of staying the course in the Donbass, and that sooner or later the current Ukrainian regime with Zelensky at its head will be defeated. But will they admit this? They will not. So what will they do about the regime's primary symbol, this comedian come direct dictator who they have placed upon a glorious shining white pedestal for such a long time now? Let's remember Zelensky was a comedian, now he's a dictator. Now how will the West rid themselves of Zelensky Pest when association with him is only an extremely unwelcome reminder of abject failure and total humiliation? It must strongly be suspected that that they will continue to love bomb him, while at the very same time they nudge him to the sidelines, abandoning the poor wretch to the ignominious fate in order to mount a rearguard attempt to save their own filthy arses. Now, as his cynical and wholly callous project in the Donbass goes down the tubes, it's very likely that they will continue to sing his praises, and all the while these politicians will pray for the speediest departure of this most dangerous liability for them. His failure will be their failure unless they disassociate themselves. So he must go, though it must not appear that he has been pushed to go. They cannot be seen to be stabbing their glorious hero in the back, and that would not be right. So his praises must continue to be sung, perhaps leaving aside the previous reference to Winston Churchill, however. That piece of ridiculously embarrassing hyperbole will be left in the, they hope, soon to be forgotten past. They must avoid going too far in any self-discomforting direction while they arrange the many sharp knives they have prepared for that ordure-colored back of his. Word will be spread that by the most secretive channels, Zelensky is out, and soon to be persona non grata, a parasite locked out of all new state studios, garden parties, corridors of power, and most definitely out of political conversation among the Western high and mighty political elites. And suddenly the invitations to speak here, there, and everywhere will cease. The phone will no longer ring, even as his shell-like ears will ring with ego-flattering praises, while his very short back senses needle-like pricks of thousands of knife points. He will be love-bombed and held at arm's length concurrently until he shuffles off into obscurity, seeking to rekindle a dead career as a third-rate comedian. And failing at this latter pursuit, he will no doubt plunge into an ever deeper bout of clinical depression, growling at maids and servants almost completely alone in his palatial domain in either Switzerland or Israel, a beaten man shunned by all those who used to shower him with praises. It's either a case of continuing to praise him as he's eased down and shown the exit, or play the mean-spirited blame game, hitting him with every semantic weapon available, describing his failure to do this, compel with take the directions from his allies that would have brought success and ultimate victory. If he had only been honest, not hidden vital information from those who were trying to do everything possible for him and his country, to no avail, he simply failed to deliver, failed to be told, failed to conduct himself properly as requested, and began asking for too much while he provided so little. And this is the alternative way to protect Western political arses, while handing Zelensky his own on a plate. The possibility that Zelensky will be afflicted in due course by some form of several mental illness, quite possibly megalomania, grow his hair and fingernails a la Howard Hughes and become a recluse should not be discounted. Every now and then some adventurous young journo will brave the high security luxury lockup he almost never leaves and report back on the disheveled mouse of a man he found wearing still the same dirty yellow-brown t-shirt, bearing a dirty week-long beard with pieces of cheese dangling within it, and again uttering plaintive growls of piteous anger aimed at the whole world that has betrayed him. The sorry sight of gruesome self-pity that no one anywhere could ever find it in themselves to pity by return. The glory days are gone, his virtual throne having been shattered into a million pieces, unable to return to what is left for fear of being lynched, hung up from a common lamppost and set alight. He will reach his complete a nadir, rejected by all but the vicious, courteous, curious, determined to see what has become of the louse that thought he was a king, the miserable fake peacemaker who decided to take on a nuclear power and lose the lives of almost 500,000 of his fellow Ukrainians, still moaning in total self-interest about his poor self. He will look in vain for some contact with any of the previous admirers. No phone calls get through to the White House. Not exactly a viable gambit anyway, as Biden is no longer there, and now in a home for the mentally decrepit. Schultz is now on a farm in Bavaria, having given up politics altogether, along with Baerbock, very nearly tarred and feathered on a Berlin street one night, who then realized the game was up with her and her companion hatred towards Russia that had so damaged Germany. What about Macron of France? Also gone, replaced by Le Pen. Zelensky no longer had any of his former political playmates to call on. Not that any of them wanted to know him anymore anyway. One after another, this gruesome crew had gone. Every politician who had sat at his feet gushing praises or polished his halo had left the political stage soon after, shafting him in an attempt to save themselves. Meanwhile, a few thousand kilometers away, a man pauses amid his daily exercise regime and ponders the poor Zelensky a while. His thoughts are not without compassion for the man, and yet, he cannot allow himself to feel over-sympathetic to the man who let himself be persuaded to choose war, not peace, a suicidal resistance rather than a mutually beneficial agreement, a man who had led his nation to a catastrophic avoidable tragedy and cost so very many Ukrainian lives. After a few thoughts of this kind, he turns his thoughts to the current tasks at hand, to move Russia forward, establishing ever high standards for every last Russian man, woman, child. And this is on Veterans Today by Jonas Alexis, senior editor. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.